Hi guys. So I was invited here today to talk about something that he called ROI equals ROI, and I guess he means return on investment equals return on involvement. So return on involvement is something that I'm working with every day in my company, and I'm also doing a lot of client projects around. And return on investment is something that I sometimes combat, I sometimes fight against, because in my little idealistic digital world, it's kind of, it can be limiting to creativity to actually look at it too much, I would say. So if I should explain the difference between return on investment and return on involvement, I would say that in this digital world, there are a lot of different combinations that it could be used in, but if we go like 150 years back or something like that, we would have, for example, in a town square, you would have a greengrocer standing and selling his groceries, and his return on investment was actually to show up, but the return on involvement came from the people who bought his groceries and who he kind of interacted with and said, so how are the kids, or well, how's that horse of yours that wasn't doing very well last week? So actually what I would say is that investment is to show up and actually, would you say, be present, even though if it's on the internet or if it's in a town square or whatever, and the involvement is actually to build trust and to build loyalty, so people, they keep coming back to your vegetable store or whatever. But in order to build involvement on the internet, I have 4 different topics that I want to just touch upon today, because I only have 20 minutes. And I guess that you guys are going to tell me when I'm up, or because I have a conclusion. So I'm just going to be talking. And then I'm going to read something out there in the end at some point. No, but the first thing that is really important for involvement is identity. And I know that you guys are doing a lot of e-commerce. And for a lot of, what would you say, web shops, in Denmark in particular, I find that they're not really good at touching upon the personality of themselves. They're not really good at using, for example, the About Us page. It's not something that a lot of companies, they have, or they're even setting up properly, and they're definitely not showing like the face behind the products. And I think that's a big shame, actually. From some research that I've done, I think it's around 30% of people who enters a website are actually going to the About Us page and actually seeing, so who is it that I'm purchasing for? Like, why are they doing this? What are their motives for actually, setting up this store that might be selling, I don't know, Scandinavian design or something like that. And I think that's something that becomes increasingly important, and it's something that I would say is the core of what I work with, actually. When I start out in some kind of a project with a client or whatever, then I always ask them, what are your values? Because if they don't know their values, if they don't know what they're going to be communicating from, and if they're not really, really sure about that, that makes my job very hard. Because then I can say, okay, I'm starting up this project, we're going to be selling these things, or we're going to be promoting or marketing, or we want people to be involved around this, but we're not really sure what it is that we want them to align themselves with. Also because of involvement, then if I'm supposed to be involved with you, I would like to kind of know what you're doing, and possibly also, if you're going to build trust with me, I want to know, like, down the line, if you're a vegetarian, or, well, maybe not that specific, but something along those lines, right? So identity is extremely important for involvement, and I think it's more complex than a lot of companies actually realize to start building upon this, because you just put them back to square one and say, okay, start out with your values again, and align them to the internet and make them digitally spreadable, and they're just looking at you going like, what, right? So that's really important. I think that I want all of you to take away from here that I see people do a lot is that they don't work strategically around their identity. So, for example, if I want to connect with you on Facebook, I would go in, and I could just say connect this person. I don't know your name, but connect this person on Facebook, and all these social media tools, and no matter like which one it is out there, it actually has this little thing saying add a personal message. Which makes, then I could tell, you should connect with me because I'm super cool and I'm a rock chick and stuff like that, right? But people don't use that, People, they just add other people on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. Well, Twitter is kind of different, but still, that's a very important strategic tool if you want to create involvement and actually get your projects out there in the world. So, that's a good way of showing identity and actually saying, okay, these are my motives for these are my motives for contacting you. This is my motives for having you in my network. Another thing I think is really important is content. Well, you probably know that. I'm being recorded on video, so no, but you already know that. And it's really, I think, also again, it's really hard to create really good content without having the values aligned. So. One of the coolest things that I have come across when I have been looking on the internet and saying, okay, this is really, really good content, is the content that is kind of put together around, what it is that they believe in, again, their values. So, for example, do you know that there's this ethical clothing manufacturer over in England called Howie's? They make jeans, for example. No. So they are doing ecological jeans, and they're very geeky around the weaving in the fabrics. So, like, it's a couple of years ago, but this is still like the favorite thing I really like to tell is they made a competition around what person in the world could wear their jeans for the longest time without washing them. So, how long do you think that was?
1 year.
1 year. No. It was a guy. It was 9 years. So basically they gave people the recipe to actually wear their jeans without washing them for 9 years. So, and I found out that there's not a lot of guys in Denmark that does this. I thought it was really fascinating. There was people out there who were actually protecting the weaving in the fabric because they wanted the jeans to be whole, and they didn't want to have, the feeling of the newly fabricated, denim to actually wear off. So what you do if you want to wear a pair of jeans for 9 years is that you, each time they start to smell a little bit, and they tend to do that, you put them in the freezer for 24 hours, and then you take them out, and then you just hang them up to dry, and then the day after they're good to go again. So I really like that. I really like it when companies, they're like saying, okay, we have something that we want to tell you that you don't know you want to hear. Like, I didn't know I wanted to hear, around jeans, in 9 years. And I have this very disturbed image in my mind of this guy, putting his jeans in the freezer all the time. But I think that's really important to actually say, okay, so we're an ecological jeans manufacturer, and a part of what we're saying is that actually if people can wear the jeans for 9 years, I mean, we might not sell a lot of jeans, but the world becomes a better place because, then we're using less washing liquid and stuff like that. So that's really important as well. And they're like, a couple of years back, it was really, really hard to get up somewhere and actually talk about a lot of cases, where people have actually done this, but some companies are getting really good at it. A lot of companies are really bad at it, but some of them are actually getting really good at it. So there's a ton of examples out there around that. A thing that's also really important to create this involvement is tools. So 2 years ago, I would have said that Facebook and Twitter was absolutely vital for you to start this involvement on, but what I'm seeing now, and where I can see that I do a lot of research around startups and where the venture capitalists, they're putting their money, and they're not putting them on the web anymore. They're putting them in social, local, and mobile combined. So basically, if you go to a VC company and you say, 2 years down the line, I'm going to have this kick-ass web community, and we're going to be interacting and send each other happy messages, and it's just going to be great. They're probably not going to be funding you. So that means that possibly we're going to be looking at a very different landscape of tools within the next 2 years. Not saying that Facebook aren't going to be really big, or Twitter aren't going to be really big, or Pinterest, which is also incredibly upcoming, mainstream right now. But the landscape is going to be different, because if you don't look at the web, or if you take the web away from the internet, the only thing that keeps things together is the connectedness of things. So that makes like creating involvement incredibly disruptive, especially if you're not going to be doing an app or something like that, but if you're just going to be depending on the phones, the iPads, whatever it is that you're bringing with you that keeps you connected to the system, or keeps you hooked up with the rest of your network. So that's something pretty new. I think it was at the Web in Paris in December, where Eric Schmidt was there talking about what Google was doing right now. And he didn't mention web one time. He mentioned Android phones. He didn't mention iPhone. I think he knows it's there, but but he was kind of talking about this connectedness, and we're bringing everything with us, and kind of developing on that instead of being in front of the computer. And I haven't really cracked the code to what it is that you're supposed to do with that, or what it is that's going to be key for you to develop towards. But I know that the platforms are going to be incredibly diverse. And if you have a company right now that's saying, we don't know if Facebook is for us, because we don't know if it's a part of our target groups that are out there, or LinkedIn that might be, to business for us, they're going to be having trouble in a couple of years, because, we're basically, I am, I don't know how you guys are, but I'm one of the first people who actually grew up with the internet. When I was 14, I got a computer, with a modem, and I was on different chat rooms and stuff all the time, but there wasn't that many before me, and you're probably a bit younger, so you've been growing up with it, but people around like 18 or 20, that's going to be hitting the companies like really, really fast. And I think it's a shame, because the gap between how fast clients or potential clients or the surroundings of the business they're moving towards how fast the businesses are actually moving themselves is just widening. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because one, they don't want to put the investment in the involvement, and two, they don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to connect with people out there, and they don't know how to do this incredibly creative, I would call it art even, this incredibly creative art of actually marketing on the internet today. The last thing, and also one of the cores around involvement and creating all this internet magic, is the productivity of people and productivity of companies, because it doesn't really happen, which is kind of bizarre, because we're still in this mentality where we're saying, okay, if we're putting a campaign in the newspaper, it's launched, because then people see it. But if we want to have involvement, we can't just say, okay, if we put a blog post out there, everybody's going to be reading it. Or if we put a link on Facebook to our own webpage, then everybody is going to be coming into our webpage themselves. That's not happening. So I think productivity is really key, and actually planning out these different parts of content and actually saying, okay, so how are we going to be working around this? How do we make sure that the people who visits Twitter every 5 minutes, and the people who visits Twitter even 3 times a day or something like that, that they're both going to be seeing our content. It's both going to be showing up in their streams, what we're doing. And actually, I just posted a newsletter about this today. Newest research shows that content on Facebook and Twitter dies after around 3 to 4 hours. So that means that's gone. People can't really see it after that. So it means, for example, if I post a blog post this morning, I do that roughly every day. I can post it 3 times a day, even though I'm just used to, if I put it out there, then people, they have seen it, and then I'm interrupting my network and nobody sees it, basically. So I'm researching a bit around that, and actually it shows that the second and the third time that I repost this blog post, not with the same, I'm not being spammy saying, hey, go look at my blog post. I basically take different quotes from it and put it up different places. So it looks new, but it's basically the same piece of content, so I don't have to write that much a day. It shows that the third time you actually put it up there, that's the time that gets most traffic, because then people are like, okay, so she's actually really active today. They might not be looking at the 2 other times, but that's really eye-opening for a lot of companies, I guess, because they're just like, oh, we need to find new content that we can put on our Facebook page, and we need to do this and write this and this for us to be remarkable and authentic and whatever it is that they are supposed to be. So that's pretty amazing, I think. And what also happens is when you start to talk proactivity around branding and marketing and involvement on the internet, is that you have probably a workload. You have a workload that goes from being around how much time do you use on being on Facebook and Twitter? Let's say around half an hour. But if you're going to be proactive around it and actually trying to expose the messages that you're putting out there to other people that are not in your immediate network, that workload, that quadruples. That's what it's called. It triples by 4. No, no, the quadruple. Like, it becomes 4 times as high as if you're just posting it out there, because you need to reach people that aren't in your net, and you need to build on this. It's not. The internet isn't like a short-term way of campaigning. It's a continuous way of creating long-term trust, as with the greengrocer in the marketplace, as I was saying before. What else is there to say around productivity? I think it's really important to see both return on investment and return on involvement as something that is it's definitely not an either or. I wouldn't say that it's a both and, but it's a little bit of this and then a little bit of that and then a little bit of this again. And I think that the investment should definitely be there before the involvement actually occurs. But it is on the strategic planning and the strategic launching of things that you're actually going to be focused. So basically, if you're going to be putting something out there, or if you're doing some kind of campaigning for, I don't know, for some kind of NGO project or whatever, I would say you should just do a hardcore time plan as you would do with everything else. Just saying, okay, this week we're going to be doing this, maybe even down to every 5 minutes, depending on how many resources you have. And that's really key to making it work, and not just putting things out there and hoping that they succeed. I'm very inspired by this campaign that's going on at the moment called KEA 2012. Have you heard about that one? There's a lot of people that are kind of like, it might not work, and I'm just like, so what's the alternative? So we're not going to be taking action because they might be taking some of the money themselves. Like, we're going to hunt that guy and actually get him, But if you imagine how many times they have been, how much planning they have been doing to actually reach that many people, it's an amazing amount of time. And I think they have done a lot of research on what kind of, like putting a tiny guy on 5 years old and interviewing him about the baddest guy in the world on video is kind of smart. So I guess that's what I'm going to be leaving you with, because my time is up, right? Yeah, that's it. Thank you.